Hi, I'm Ronald Pope, the current president of the Barbados Society of Psychology. The topic of narcissism and parental alienation is one that's dear to me. In this profession, I get to meet a lot of individuals who were once in relationships with narcissists. One of the most concerning aspects of being in a relationship with a narcissist are the long-term effects it has on the victim. These individuals can sometimes have serious trust issues, poor self-efficacy, constant and unnecessary overthinking, just to name a few. These issues can sometimes affect a victim for a very long time, causing long-term mental health challenges. Therefore, education on this topic is a must. As it relates to parental alienation, this is an ever-growing issue in our society. It is also at this stage the narcissist blames the other partner for the family breakup, thereby causing confusion and self-doubt, this time within the mind of the child. Therefore, as a society, it is essential we become educated on these topics.
My name is Cornelius Bartlett and I'm the founder and chairman of Family Fest Barbados. I'm also a family advocate. I want to make an appeal to all persons who are in social interest groups for families, whether you are a social worker, a psychologist, a therapist, a guidance counselor, you're a member of the Barbados Police Service, you're a member of the Barbados Judiciary, or any person who is involved in family interest. I would encourage you and implore you to tune in during the month of July 2024 to hear more about narcissism and parental alienation. Of course, as we unpack it, we cannot, and it's not possible in 12 discussions to give you all that you need to know. But I'm hopeful that this would pique your interest to go and investigate more so that you get yourself better knowledgeable and well equipped to deal with these family issues as they arise. So just tune in on Facebook or YouTube. Family Fest Barbados is the handle, and hear more about this very riveting and devastating topic of narcissism and parental alienation. See you online, and God bless.
We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness. With God on our side, we're marching strong, looking out for hurting children all around.
Hello, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us for this evening's discussion on narcissism and parental alienation right here on Family Fest Barbados. Whether you're watching us live on YouTube or on Facebook, we say a warm welcome to you. I'm going to encourage you. I'm Krista J. Paul, your host, your moderator for this evening. I'm going to encourage you absolutely to check out all the other episodes in this fantastic discussion. Narcissism and parental alienation, a topic that is very, very necessary, that you may not have heard about before, but you may have experienced. Maybe you're experiencing it and you're not sure of the terminology. You can see narcissism and parental alienation, abuse, heartbreak, and pain in marriage. You can see hope for the alienated parent, hope for the parental narcissism and parental alienation, hope for the alienated part 2. Yeah, there are 2 parts to that discussion. You'll also see children as victims of narcissistic parents. You will see so much more. You scroll down on Family Fest Barbados' Facebook page and check out all the very interesting discussions. Well, this evening you would have seen 2 or 3 panelists, but we have here one panelist with us, none other than the Cornelius Bartlett, who is well versed in this topic. You will see him in discussions on this topic throughout the month on Family Fest Barbados. Welcome to you, Cornelius.
Thank you, Crystal J, and good evening to all of our viewers and all of our listeners.
Yes, well, this evening we're going to be looking at hope for the family in the face of narcissism and parental alienation. Improvements needed at all levels that can help victims and lessen the impact. And just in case you're joining us for the very first time, because I don't want to take it for granted that everybody watching this has seen the previous episodes. But just to recap, narcissism is the excessive interest in or admiration of oneself and one's physical appearance. Parental alienation is a strategy whereby one parent intentionally displays to the child unjustified negativity aimed at the other parent. So let's dive in now into this evening's topic. Again, hope for the family in the face of narcissism and parental alienation. Improvements needed at all levels that can help victims and lessen the impact. Well, as members of the real world, the family unit does not exist in a vacuum. Around the family is the extended family, the church, school, social groups, etc. When a family starts overlooking the effects of parental alienation, the peripheral groups around the family can play a vital role in the rescue and recovery of the family. With narcissism and parental alienation on the increase, it is in the best interest of the family for the interest groups to identify, arrest, and assist in any way possible at the earliest possible stage. While it will be ideal for the members within the family to help themselves, because of the complexity, this is very often not possible. It is therefore incumbent upon the interest groups surrounding the family to assist in prevention at the earliest possible stage. That is quite a mouthful, and I'm telling you, a lot to uncover in this topic. The objective this evening is to take a look at how the various stakeholders and groups surrounding their family can assist in suffocating parental alienation. Now, Cornelius, we have a lot to dive into this evening. I would have set the foundation a bit with just a little bit of a definition of each terminology. Now, even as we look at arresting parental alienation, suffocating parental alienation, does arresting at the early signs of parental alienation make a difference? How can this happen?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to make a couple of declarations. One, the whole issue of parental alienation, when it was researched, it was found that it was predicated or sat on a foundation of narcissism. And that's not to say 100% of the times, but the majority of the times, the researchers that looked at this topic overseas found that the majority of times when you see parental alienation occurring, when you trace it to its roots, you found a narcissist. Hence the reason we kind of pull those 2 mental health or those 2 dynamics together. because parental alienation is a family dynamic, while narcissism is a mental health disorder. It's a personality disorder. Now, when you talk about early stage, or when we talk about early stage, we're talking about before the effects of parental alienation takes place. So let me just start to break down a couple of things, because this is such a complex topic that we have to take our time to really break it down properly. So let's look at the issue of narcissism first of all. That's where it starts. You meet someone, you get married, or some people don't get married. Some people have a common law relationship because we want to keep all families together, whether the family is a legally married family or a family that has a common law marriage. We want to keep all families together. So you meet someone, you get married, hopefully, and you have no idea what baggage that person is carrying, both ways. So he doesn't know what baggage she's carrying, she doesn't know what baggage he's carrying. It is possible that one or both could be narcissistic. Now, we don't want to put labels on anyone, but I would think it is safe to say that everybody has some measure at some point in time display some narcissistic traits. But when we're talking about narcissistic or a narcissist, we're talking about someone who has these traits in extreme amounts where it becomes damaging to the functioning of a family. So we're going to use terms in this discussion like healthy and unhealthy. So we consider a person who narcissism may visit every once in a while, but they're not full blown. We will consider them a healthy parent. They're not perfect, but they're healthy. And then we're going to consider the person who is full blown narcissistic. We're going to call them unhealthy. So you meet someone and you don't know, each person doesn't quite know if the other person is unhealthy. And one of the things about relationships, as we all know, is that you have a honeymoon period where everybody is nice and sweet and everything is perfect and butterflies fly around and you have the soft teddy bears and all of that, right?
Yes.
Then life happens. Then you have children. Then you have disagreements. You have opinions that get stronger over the years. What you find with the person who has the narcissistic personality disorder is that when you start to put them under the spotlight in terms of criticisms, they start to crack and they start to actually show the damage that was done to them in childhood, and they start to kick back. And what you will find is that the person who has narcissistic personality disorder will start to become disenchanted with you if you are constantly exposing them. Now, if you don't have any children involved, you can understand that a narcissist is going to start to give you a really hard time if it's just one-on-one. But you can appreciate, of course, that a person who is lashing back as a result of having this personality disorder when children are involved, and if, of course, you end up in a divorce, you can then understand how hell will be unleashed against you. Now, that was just by way of trying to break down the foundation of what and how this thing takes on a life. Now, we're talking hope. So we're talking about arresting at the early stage. So I would want to suggest, Crystal J, that the early stage looks like managing your way around this person with this personality disorder. Because you cannot cure them. Only body can cure a narcissist is God. There's no pill, there's no medication that was developed for it. So you pretty much will have to live with it. Your children will have to live with it. But I don't want to see the fact that a narcissist, most of the persons who are narcissistic or full-blown will most likely die that way. I don't want it to seem like a death sentence. It is not. It doesn't have to be. If you are on the other end of a narcissistic spouse, whether you're still living in the house or you have been divorced, you have to function in wisdom. And functioning in wisdom means that you have to manage that process in terms of trying to make sure that you don't trigger and that you don't make things worse.
Wow, that's a deep foundation upon which to set the discussion. And it's very, very important for us to get that information out there to set the stage so that you can really build upon that, especially for this topic, particular discussion, hope for the family in the face of narcissism and parental alienation. So having set that foundation, I'm going to put the question to you again. in terms of arresting the early signs? Because just as you rightly said, you have the butterflies and I love your description. I can't repeat it right now. I can't remember the words, but I loved it. The butterflies and the flowers and the confetti and everything is all flowery until life happens, as you rightly said. And then you realize that there are certain traits coming out of that spouse that would indicate some kind of happening from childhood, something that would have triggered, something that triggers them, and you realize, okay, this is something deeper than what it looks like on the surface, and it does become a mental health issue. So how then can we arrest those early signs? How can we identify the early signs, and how can we arrest them? That's a parental alienation.
Okay. One of the things I would like to say now, and I would like to make it really clear by way of encouragement. Too often we wait until too late, push the button or to pull the trigger on getting help. Now, when I talk about getting help, you may think that getting help is about the narcissist getting help. The narcissist is never going to go and get help. I mean, hardly ever. I mean, I could almost 95% guarantee you the narcissist will not choose to get help unless it is something critical and devastating, and they may appear to do it to get what they want. Because bear in mind that narcissism, persons who are narcissistic are extremely manipulative. So they will shed the tears, they'll go to the counselor and so on, the therapist, just enough to get you back into the web. But I want to say to persons who are at the early stage, or you start to experience you start to see cracks in the foundation of your marriage and your relationship, to go and get help. And I'm talking to the healthy parent now. And we're assuming that you have children involved, but even if you don't have children involved, go and get help. There's nothing wrong. Actually, there's everything right about going and getting help, going and seeing a therapist, and let the therapist know what is going on. And if the therapist is one that is versed in these sort of areas, they will be able to identify it, and they will be able to give you techniques and strategies as to how to manage yourself within the home environment when the other spouse is a narcissist or is narcissistic. Now, the arresting doesn't look, arrest sounds like a very aggressive term, but arresting isn't to be approached like how it sounds. The arresting is about you getting the relevant help by way of knowledge, by way of advice, so that you come back into the home and your role is not to point out, I went today to a therapist and I realized you're a narcissist, that is not wise. Yes, that is not wise. The idea of getting the information or the knowledge is about management. And I want persons to write that down. Management. It is about management. It is not about becoming an armchair psychologist. It's not about rubbing their face in it. I know that as human beings, we are very often tempted to start to spurt out. All of us make that mistake. I've made that mistake over the years a lot in terms of, I am very analytical. So I would have been one of the persons who would have, if I were to be in that situation, I would have made that mistake. But after all these years of studying the family and studying human behavior, I actually studied this topic for over 2 years. Yeah. So I can tell you that trying to meet the narcissistic parent head on or the narcissistic spouse head on, that is an incorrect strategy, and you will fail. You will not win. You will make things worse, and you're going to notice that it will spiral from bad to worse. Yeah. So that's what arresting looks like. Arresting looks like you equipping yourself with the knowledge to not only cope, but to manage, because you want to get past coping. Coping sounds like you're just struggling through the marriage. You want to be able to manage it. And so very often it's really about managing the other person. Because remember, and I'm going to keep repeating this through this discussion, the idea and objective is to keep the family together. I know there's a lie being told out there that, get rid of that person, go, divorce them, and the children will recover, children will adapt, and you get that kind of talk out there, and it's bandied around so often that people actually believe that the children will be okay. Yet the research and the evidence in our society shows that the children are not okay.
Right.
That's a different topic.
Well, but even as we would have started off talking about the fact that the family unit does not exist in a vacuum. because there are people on the outside who are maybe seeing things, picking up certain responses in one spouse and reactions in another spouse. And they want to be able to play a part, but are not sure. And just as you mentioned, the person who is being the what do you call it? The person being alienated, the parent being alienated.
Targeted parent. Call them the targeted parent.
Parent. Okay.
Yeah.
The targeted parent would then seek help from a therapist. But those outside of the family, that family unit, how can they help? How can they help both the targeted parent and the aggressor?
Alienating parent. Yes, okay.
Yes.
All right. I'm glad you were asking all the right questions, Crystal J. And I'm glad you asked that because, like the person who is within the marriage, I believe that family members that really care and love their loved ones can also go and approach a therapist and tell the therapist what they're saying. Very too often, in-laws and friends and neighbors and workmates sit back and allow families to fall apart. I mean, we're discussing parental alienation, but by and large, I think that we have become a careless society. We have become a very indifferent, loveless society. And I'm not saying that as a means of judgment. I'm saying that as a means of encouragement, because as of tomorrow, we can start becoming a loving environment, a loving society. We could become a caring society. So I'm saying it not to discourage, but to motivate you. But back to the question that you asked. Too often, you have persons around who are not knowledgeable enough on these things, because a lot of people try to use conventional logic in trying to understand what is happening. A lot of people manage life by emotions. So you know what? If he does this, do this back to him. You know how many people are going out to get divorced? They say, man, I'm going to rinse him out. I'm going to leave him with pants and shirt on his back. I am just galled at the amount of loveless advice and the amount of evil and spite that is out there. And I'll tell you, right, everybody I know is Cornelius Bartlett. I will tell you straight to your face, right? That is not the way to go. And I will say this now, that when people start to see their family members with a spouse that is not acting right, too often they ask or they encourage that spouse, or they themselves get involved in violent behavior, either verbal, and sometimes they get physical. Speak negatively about that person. I want persons to understand that narcissism is a mental health disorder. It's like a broken leg or broken arm. The same way, this may sound strange, and some people may take a while to get what I'm saying, but the person who is narcissistic that is married to your sister or your brother, you need to feel a sense of love for that person to the extent that you do not try to exacerbate or try to create more turmoil for your loved one by actually having vengeance being leveled at that person. Because if you understood what narcissism is, you would focus more on management more so than getting even. And a lot of people, I mean, this conversation that we are having now and what I'm saying is going to sound new, but family members and friends and loved ones too often respond out of emotion. Right. So you get this anger, man, leave him or leave her, you know? Well, in truth and in fact, this is somebody that you said, I do to that. I love you. I will see you for the rest of my life. And they happen to be sick.
Yes, so it's more reactive as opposed to responsive. That's
right. Well said. Exactly. You know? So if you are, you may be a teacher, and let's involve the children, because we're talking about spouses. Let's involve the children. You may be a school teacher, and you may see children start to display a certain type of behavior. You may be a coach. You may be someone who is at church with this or these persons. And my indictment is on the church as well, because I believe that the church needs to be more loving.
Yes.
It can't only be about
and more observant, more discerning.
Right. That's right. It can't only be about tithes and offerings.
Yes.
Right? It has to be about ministry to the entire family. And it can't be only embracing the ones that are healthy. We need to embrace the unhealthy parents and the unhealthy people as well.
Yeah, yes. Oh my word. That is definitely a lot to mull over, because those outside need to play a part. And we need to really get this understanding about playing a part. So you mentioned that they can actually go to a therapist and get advice from that therapist. A therapist or perhaps a psychologist, as Ronald
Or
Pope in the beginning would have.
or I would even say this, and this is a personal pet peeve of mine. I think that people spend too much time watching TV and on social media. Why
Okay.
not spend some of that time on YouTube looking at videos of narcissism and parental alienation, and go to some reputable sources on the internet? Reputable because, to be honest with you, I see a lot of garbage on YouTube as well.
It's
There's a lot of good
crazy.
stuff. In fact, I see stuff on YouTube, like, because when I was studying narcissism, obviously I would have gone to YouTube as well, one of my sources.
Mhm.
And I see people talking about, have titles for YouTube videos like, here's, you want to see how to bring a narcissist to their knees? I mean, like, seriously.
Bring them to their knees?
Yeah, in other words, they are talking about executing vengeance on the
Yes,
narcissist.
yes.
And I would
Mhm.
want to advise you, when you see those kind of videos, exit. Do not watch them.
Yes,
Do
yes,
not watch
yes.
them. Those videos are corrupting. They're
Mhm.
ungodly. And we're going to talk about God shortly, because at the end of the day, right, whether you're Christian or not, whatever religion you might belong to, we cannot leave God out of the discussion. But you know, they say we should
Yes.
leave the best to last. So maybe later down we'll bring in the God element. But I just I'm galled at the kind of advice that I'm seeing on YouTube about the narcissist. What we're gonna do with Family Fest, we're gonna put some reputable sites up, reputable commentators and psychologists that you can go to. But you cannot listen to a lot of all of what you see on YouTube, because there's
Yes,
some
true.
people there giving some very bad advice. From the time you see an advice, let me put it this way. Here's how you will know when you're getting bad advice. Any advice that is not predicated on love is bad advice.
Correct.
No more long talk.
And it
Any
it might
advice,
sound strange, but then that's correct.
yeah, any advice that is
Mhm.
not predicated on love is bad advice. So I don't have to talk much now. I don't have to say much more. So when you go online and you see you see a title, and you want to understand narcissism and parental alienation, and your title looks loveless, exit.
Mm.
Next.
All right. Good advice. Good advice. Well, it's good for someone outside of the family unit, the extended family, or somebody at church, etc., to get advice on how to approach the family. But we know that good advice is not always taken. And there is resistance. And there could very well be resistance from the family, from the targeted parent, or even the alienator. What can people do? How can they approach the family so that there is least resistance?
Okay, well, again, I like that question, and you want me to think of the wisest approach that one should use. First of all, and let's be real here, because we're having a discussion. Let's bring it down into reality, right? You trust persons that you have a relationship with, don't you?
Yes.
Right. So I fail to see someone who has a relationship with someone that person would be close to them. People who have relationship with you are open to you. So I want to recommend to you who have an influence with either the alienator or the targeted parent to use your influence to help.
Mm.
Sometimes, for example, you find that the alienator, who may be a narcissist, when the targeted parent tries to meet them head on, all hell breaks loose. But somebody who is close to the alienator could get through to them. The alienated parent can then use that person, obviously in wisdom, because the person who is the friend of the narcissist or the narcissistic parent is not going to go back and say, well, your partner, or your wife or your husband told me to come and talk to you. You're not going to do that.
No, that wouldn't be wise, would it?
No, it wouldn't be wise. So sometimes you have to approach it vicariously, where you don't go directly, but you use somebody, maybe a good friend of your husband or wife, maybe somebody, a family member who has an influence with them. But this whole navigation, remember at the beginning I said it's about management. This whole navigation comes down to wisdom and management.
Yes, yes, yes.
It comes down to wisdom. If you go head on, you will not win, because head on is going to be the worst approach. If you go pointing out this and pointing out that, you do not point out anything negative or critical to a narcissistic person. You don't. You have to
Yes.
you have to go around you have to go around the world, or go around the bush, or not go around at all. Get somebody else to go around for you.
Yes. Yes. Wow. Well, you mentioned earlier in their introduction about the fact that, some do end up in divorce, right? And in this case, the court would get involved. Now, when you look at the court system, how can you say the court can make a difference in even offering hope for the alienated parent?
You're asking all of the perfect questions, Crystal J. It's like you read my mind in terms of what I wanted people to know. You're asking me all the right questions. Okay, so, and I'm glad you started with the court, because the court is the one who gives the final document for divorce.
Yes.
And the court is the place where court orders are given in terms of how the family is to function and what rights people are going to have after the divorce. The court will determine who will get major custody, if custody is shared equally, whatever else. Now, and I'm gonna say this flat out: judges and magistrates are not psychologists; they are trained in law. Unfortunately, law is not going to help you to navigate this issue of narcissism and parental alienation. However, I would want any judge or any magistrate or any court officer, even law enforcement, to hear this. There are people that you can order reports from. You can get social workers and therapists and psychologists to do research, and to research these cases and report to the court. Too often, the court doesn't understand these mental health disorders. They don't understand these family dynamics, and they are making decisions that are making things worse. It's not intentional. I don't think there's any judge in Barbados or magistrate that is intentionally making it worse. But I had a boss that used to say it years ago: "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." Your good intentions, Mr. Magistrate or Miss Magistrate or Miss or Mrs. Judge, your intention does not matter. Families are being destroyed in this country every day, and you need to do better by referring to professionals and experts who can go out there and do the investigation and bring back reports to you. And they will be able to diagnose where the problem is coming from. They'll be able to diagnose where parental alienation is coming from, so that when you make a decision and you give a court order, that court order is given based on the best knowledge, and you end up with the best outcome. Because very often, or too often, children are being left in the hands of narcissistic parents, who very often go on to have them alienated from the other parent. And we're going to probably take a look before we finish at the effects that these narcissistic parents who end up perpetrating parental alienation, the effects on the children who end up becoming victims of the syndrome. Because I want to just remind listeners that parental alienation has to do with the group of strategies and techniques that the alienating parent executes. Parental alienation syndrome is the infection of those strategies on the child. So the child becomes now infected with the syndrome and starts to reject the other parent, because parental alienation doesn't always work.
Right. Yes.
When it works, the child has been infected with the syndrome. When it doesn't work, they have not been infected, because you have some families where there's more than one child, and only one child becomes infected. The other one relates to the other parent. Same.
Well, as I would have mentioned at the top of the program, narcissism and parental alienation is a phrase, a term. Well, you mentioned putting them together. And this is a topic that has so many variations, and it would be wise for even judges to watch the Family Fest Barbados discussions. You're talking about referring to discussions on YouTube and so on, but there is already so much meat right here on this page, right here on this channel. And this content is here for life. And it would do well for people in the court system, in law enforcement, because we know that there are so many behaviors about which we may not necessarily know or may not have understood it for it to be termed that way, and that there's actually help and that there is a system and a response instead of a reaction. Now, we talk about the court system, but even law enforcement, because we know that this can become a hostile situation.
Yep.
And law enforcement can be called in. You know, do you think that even as it relates to the law enforcement, how can they assist? Well, first of all, by educating themselves
Yep.
on narcissism and parental alienation. But
You
how
got it.
do you think they can assist families in dealing with this situation as well?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, education, education, education. And Family First, we actually have a plan to start to target all of those interest groups: Barbados Police Service, Judiciary, Bar
Good.
Association. We're going to target all of them.
Good.
And but here's as you were
Necessary.
as you were speaking just now, I also, it came to me that, you know, this is such a difficult topic, and you hit the nail on the head correctly. This existed for a long, long time. It was officially coined back in 1985 by a psychologist, a child psychologist in the US called Dr. Richard Gardner. He's passed on now. But a lot of people, when they see parental alienation at work, they don't understand it. So let me give you an example as to one of the biggest mistakes, one of the absolutely biggest mistakes people make when they see parental alienation in action. And listen up. A divorce happens. The children previously, and I want to make this distinction, there are some parents, some mothers and fathers who are deadbeat. So when the child starts to reject them, the rejection can be warranted, can be. But in the case of parental alienation, one of the qualifications would be the child must have had a previous good relationship with that parent.
Yes.
So it is very specific. I mean, if we had time, I could go through the actual requirements of what is required. There's a test that is carried out on the alienating parent, the child, and the alienated or targeted parent. But I can tell you that when parental alienation occurs, to an untrained eye in law enforcement, or an untrained eye in judiciary, or an untrained eye in the family or in the public, and you see a child rejecting a parent, this is what the untrained eye and the untrained mind says. Well, if he or she rejecting her father or mother, they must have done the child something. That's the logical approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is so hard and painful and wrong, because when this demon called parental alienation is at work, you have a parent who once had a loving, connected, available relationship with a child. And through the brainwashing and engineering of another parent after a breakup or divorce, and it doesn't have to be a parent, it could be another family member, it could be grandparents. You might have a spouse that dies. I hear of a case where a mother dies and the grandparents take over the children and alienated the children against the father. Yep. I've heard of a church, I don't know if kind of church that could be, but I heard of a church that actually alienated a child against his mother because the mother no longer conformed to the mandate of the leader of the church. Yeah. So when we talk about
answerable to God for sure.
Of course. But when we talk about parental alienation, it is speaking about what happens on the end of it, not at the root of it. The root of it could be another parent, it could be a church, it could be another family member, but at the other end is a parent who's being rejected, which is why it's called parental alienation. It speaks to the end zone and not the root beginning. So the truth of the matter is that I really would want persons out there to recognize that when you see a child rejecting a parent that it previously had a relationship with before, and this is now venturing into the area of psychology, the alarm bell should go off that parental alienation is at work. And I'll tell you this, Mr. J, the research shows that when you find a child rejecting a parent, it is extremely unnatural, because if a child had a previously good relationship with a parent, it's not natural for it to reject that parent even after divorce. In fact, they say that when you find children who are sexually or physically abused, they are still ambivalent. In other words, they still have mixed feelings about the parent. They don't totally reject that parent. But when you see a total rejection, psychological research, psychology research shows that a third party is usually at work and influencing the mind of that child.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
Listen, there's so much to take in here. I mean, when you think of parental alienation, where it starts with the family is intact, or whether it is that there's separation already in progress. Should the targeted parents focus be on the alienator, since you're just talking about that, or should they focus on the children in that relationship?
I would hands down say the focus should always be on the children. And there's a special love, all of us who have children, we have a special love for our children. And I would want that we allow the love we have for our children to be the main motivator of the amount of abuse that we're willing to take. And I know that sounds bad to hear me say it, because the alienator is abusive.
Yes.
And you, as the parent that is targeted, need to be willing to take some of the abuse to ease the abuse off your child. Because when your child alienates you, even though the child is perpetrating the alienation, that child is actually brainwashed. That child is actually experiencing abuse.
Mm-hmm.
You find that children very often are shelved or shaded from that if you can find a way of getting along, as it were, with the alienating parent. So the truth of the matter is that every day you get up, you need to allow your child and a relationship with your child to motivate you. You need to ignore the fact that your child, and when I say ignore, do not react to the fact that the child is now becoming disrespectful. Children who are under the spell, and I'm going to call it a spell because that's what it's like. Children who are under the spell of parental alienation, they are very often extremely disrespectful, and they're extremely unremorseful about that disrespect. Understand that your child is under a spell, and the day that that spell is broken, and your child come back, you need to be like the father of the prodigal son. That's where the hope is. The hope is not in that everything is going to go perfect, but that you understand that your child doesn't have its own mind. Because in parental alienation, you will very often hear the child speaking the exact things and using the same phrases that the alienating parent will use about you and to you. So however they talk to people about you, your own child that you once hugged and loved and kissed and all of that will speak that same way about you. They will take part in the denigration. They will criticize you about unreasonable things. That you're going to find children coming by you and taking pictures and sending back to the alienating parent. You're going to find children finding fault with what color shirt you wear with a particular pants, and if your car is a certain age. I mean, things that are so frivolous you would not believe. But under this spell called parental alienation, I would want the hope to look like parent who is being alienated need to put some steel in their emotions and focus real hard, digging deep, and focus on your child or children. Because here's what happens if you don't. If you allow your emotions to get caught up or entangled in the pain that is being leveled at you, you're going to react. And notice, your reaction is going to validate all that the alienator is telling the child about you. It's very complicated. So hope has to look like you taking full control of your emotions and not allowing yourself to buy in or be lured into reacting to the disrespectful, unreasonable lies and all those things that are being leveled at you. You need to look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is that your child is brainwashed. The child is being unkind, being disrespectful, being unreasonable, being everything that you absolutely hate. And the tendency is for you to react. You have to come outside of yourself, almost like having an out-of-body experience, and not react to that. Because when you react, you're going to put nails into your own casket.
So what about even spending more time with the child? More time and investing, going to their football games, encouraging them in chess, whatever the case might be. If you see that they are inclined toward a particular game or sport, to spend time and play video games with that child. Wouldn't that also help to take it back?
That would help. But let me again bring us back into reality. On paper, that sounds easy. Spend more time and do this and do that. Yes, you can go to the football games and the ballet recitals because the child doesn't control that. If you turn up at a venue and you sit down and watch your child, they can see you in the audience. They can't stop that. But sometimes, or very often with parental alienation, the child makes a decision they don't want to come by you anymore. They don't want to come with you anymore. They would even say, I don't want you at my football game. I don't want you at my recital. I don't want you at, even sometimes with adult children who end up being victims of parental alienation, they say, I don't want my father or mother at my wedding. It goes as far as that.
Wow.
And now,
Okay.
so then it goes generational, where you have now children who are alienated from their grandparents, for example, because of this. So it is extremely dark, dirty, diabolical. It is, and because I hear a lot of these sad stories. Up to a couple of weeks ago, I got a call from someone who said to me, my child just passed, did 11 plus, and I cannot, and they did very well, and I cannot even call and congratulate them. Yeah, so I get a lot of these sad stories coming to me directly, so I can give you a chapter and verse on how this plays out in real life.
Okay.
I'm not a therapist, so I don't try to give people therapy. I send them to the experts, because we have at Family Fest, we have a whole cadre of experts that we refer to. But I can tell you that while, in as far as you can, spend the time. But I just want to declare that I do understand. For persons who are listening and say, but I don't think they understand. Yes, we do understand. I certainly understand that sometimes you don't even have the option. That option to spend time with your child is taken away from you. But in as far as you can go to the football games and the ballet recitals and just turn up and be present, send cards. If you're accustomed to sending allowance, buying gifts and sending, continue to do that. Do it with a ritual of sort, because here's what happens. What you're doing is like a bank account. You're making deposits in an account that will give you interest later on.
Right.
Because see it like sowing seeds. When you plant seeds, you don't see anything at first, right? And then when it starts to grow, you don't see any fruit. Sometimes you just see a little bit of growth, but then eventually you will see fruit.
Right. But so in the situation where the family is still intact and it is in progress, everybody still lives under the same roof. You know, what hope is there for preventing or even reversing the slide into parental alienation?
The hope again is in trying to work with the narcissistic parent, because the problem with narcissism is that those people who have those traits or that personality disorder, they're extremely unreasonable. And what will happen is that you need to recognize what it is you're dealing with. You see, the hardest thing is to know. The Bible tells us about operating in wisdom or in knowledge. Yeah? Understand who you're dealing with and function to suit. If you do not have these strategies and techniques, that is where you need to get help. But the thing about it is that even within the home, it becomes volatile, because you are telling the child, no, you are not allowed to watch TV during the week. And the narcissistic parent who is trying to get even or trying to usurp your authority will say, no, you can watch TV. Or you will take away a tablet and say, well, you're banned from this tablet for a week. The narcissistic parent will give back the child the tablet, because the narcissistic parent is always trying to score points.
Override.
And they don't care that they're destroying the child. Because bear in mind that, I don't want to say bear in mind, one of the layman terms or phrases used for narcissistic parents is that there are people who, for example, lack self-love. So when you have a person that lacks